had to prepare himself for death within 7 days. Mahārāja Parīkṣit is especially famous Pardon? Okay, I'll anyhow cover it again. Mahārāja Parīkṣit is especially famous as one who protected by Viṣṇu, and when he was unduly cursed by a brahmana's son, he could have invoked the mercy of the Lord to save him, but he did not want to be, because he was a pure devotee. A pure devotee never asked the Lord for any undue favor. Mahārāja Parīkṣit knew that the curse of the Brahmana's son upon him was unjustified, as everyone also knew. But he did not want to counteract it, because he knew also that the age of Kali had begun, and that the first symptom of the age, namely degradation of the highly talented Brahmana community, had also begun. He did not want to interfere with the current of the time, but he prepared himself to meet death very cheerfully and very properly. Being fortunate, he got at least 7 days to prepare himself to meet death, and so he properly utilized the time in the association of Śukadeva Gosvāmī, the great saint and devotee of the Lord. So, repeating the translation, how was the great Emperor Parīkṣit, who was a highly intelligent and great devotee? So, this is the question being posed by the sages of Naimisharanya to Śukadeva Gosvāmī as to the greatness of Mahārāja Parīkṣit. So, first qualification was he was the great emperor, which, as is mentioned in the purport, he was ruling the entire planet. And secondly, he was highly intelligent, mahā-buddheḥ. So it's also mentioned that Krishna ye baje se bada chatur. So one who is a devotee as naturally becomes highly intelligent. Translation is there. So we can see that in the Bhagavad Gita also, 10th chapter, Krishna says, Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Also Prabhupada mentions that Bhakti Yoga is also known as Buddhi Yoga. So it's a natural consequence that one who is a devotee will also become very intelligent. So then the qualification is, one has to be sincere. So one may say that in the beginning I am not so intelligent. But in the 10th chapter again, the next verse says that I give like the shining lamp of knowledge, removes the darkness born of ignorance. So even though a person may not be very intelligent and takes to devotional service, the Lord reveals the knowledge by which he can become intelligent. So this was the qualification of Parīkṣit, that he was the emperor, and secondly he was highly intelligent and also great devotee. So it's a perfect combination. As he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, this is coming through parampara of Raja Rishi, saintly kings. So not only he was a king, but he was also saintly. That is why it's mentioned here, great devotee. So that is the perfect qualification for propagating Krishna consciousness. So the question is, how was he born in that womb? Why this question is asked? Because the Brahmastra had already destroyed the womb. Because the Brahmastra is said to be an invincible weapon, which means it cannot fail. It is also based on some Vedic principles, and Vedas cannot be wrong. So it has to work. So whether you are devotee or non-devotee, it has to work. So which means it had already destroyed the womb, having done its job. So in that condition, how was he born? So this is a miracle, isn't it? When the conditions favorable for birth are not there, still he was born. So that was the question they asked. And next is, how did his death take place? Because he was born in an extraordinary way, so naturally his death is also should be actually extraordinary. So that is the second important question they are asking. And third important question is, what did he achieve after his death? Because during his life they had seen it, that he was a perfect king, and also he was faced death in the right way. Now then, the next question, if supposing a person has written an exam, immediate answer, next question will be, what is the result? So having heard the Bhagavatam, what did he achieve after his death? So these very pertinent questions for us. That is, how are we taking birth? How will our death take place? How will we face this death, which is inevitable? And then what will happen after death? These are the three most important questions which everyone should ask. So in the purport it explains, the king of Hastināpura. So how do we know this Hastināpura was a king? By the amount of elephants, the chariots and the infantry. So this was how the power of some kingdom was estimated. So Hastināpura means, as Prabhupada says, Hasti means elephant. It was having a lot of elephants. So now present day Delhi used to be the king used to be the emperor of the world. So which means he established himself by birth itself. Some things are attained from birth. Some things are acquired after birth. But in the case of Mahārāja Parīkṣit, by his being born to the Pandavas in the Kuru dynasty, he was entitled to become the emperor. And at least at that time, the time of King Emperor Parīkṣit, so this was the headquarters. So now a question may arise, it is no longer the fact, but history repeats itself. So it is very likely that again it will just like when even the devastation takes place, again Vrindavan or these spiritual places, they won't get destroyed. They will. So similarly, these places are in one sense eternal. Mahārāja Parīkṣit was saved by the Lord in the womb of his mother. So that's why he is known as Viṣṇu Ratha. Viṣṇu Ratha means one whose destiny is designed by Lord Viṣṇu himself. In our case, its destiny is designed by our karma. Karmāṇa deivanetrina. Not only our actions, but the demigods are giving the results of our action. But in the case of devotees like Parīkṣit, whatever activities they do, they are governed by the Lord, and the result is also given by the Lord. So Mahārāja Parīkṣit was saved by the Lord in the womb. So how does he save the Parīkṣit? Because we said the womb is destroyed. So in the Krishna Bhagavad Gita says, Neha Vikramanashnosti Swalpa Utyavayana Lipyate Swalpam Apasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat. For a devotee, there is no death. Just like we recently celebrated Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur Disappearance Day. So the main point Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing this, whether living or dying, it doesn't matter for a devotee because he is always a devotee. So because Parīkṣit was a devotee, he has already attained the spiritual body. So whatever, just like if the shirt gets torn, we just replace it. So in the case of Parikṣit, he is already liberated. Even when he appeared in the womb, he is liberated. So it really doesn't matter whether the external body is there or not. So therefore, when he says, Krishna says, Yogakshemam vahāmyaham, that is, I will preserve what you have. So what does he preserve? He preserves the spiritual body. So here, Mahārāja Parīkṣit's spiritual body is being protected by the Lord. So that is the natural function of the Lord. His duty. The Lord has no duty to perform. But what is his duty? Bhaktavatsala. He is always thinking about his devotee, as the devotee is always thinking about the Lord. So natural consequence is, he was saved by the Lord in the womb of his mother. So in any condition, Lord can protect. So in another talk also it is mentioned that the soul is conscious from the day one. From the day it enters the womb of the mother, from that day itself it is conscious. Of course, it depends on the nature of the soul. So he could certainly be saved from untimely death due to the ill will of the son of the Brahmana. If he could be saved in the womb of the mother, which is so difficult, naturally when he is out of the womb, it is very much easy to save himself. He could have done that. Even after he was cursed by the son of the sage, some sages came and assured Parikṣit Maharaj that we can deliver you from this curse also. Even if the snake is to bite you, Takshaka snake bites you, they demonstrated that a tree was burnt to ashes by this Takshaka snake. Immediately one Brahmana, he sprinkled some sacred water and the tree came back to life. So that sage assured the king that if you want, I can, even if this snake were to bite you, I can free you from that. But he was not interested, because already he has a spiritual body and he was already protected by the Lord in the womb. So where is the need for another protection layer? So in one sense it is not untimely. For us, death is untimely. Mostly it is untimely. Very rarely. But in the case of Parikṣit, it was an arrangement of the Lord. His birth, his activities, his disappearance also. So, because of the age of Kali, began to act just after the assumption of power by Mahārāja Parīkṣit. So, even Kali was waiting for Lord Krishna's disappearance. Then only he could enter. And that too, to enter also he had to take permission from Mahārāja Parīkṣit. So, Mahārāja Parīkṣit was such a powerful king that in his presence even Kali personified could not make an entry. He had to seek permission, and with his permission Kali made his entrance. And the first sign of misgivings. So misgiving means something unfortunate. Giving is there and misgiving is there. So what is unfortunate? What's exhibited in the cursing of such a great, intelligent and devoted king as Mahārāja Parīkṣit. So this is the most unfortunate thing, that having such an intelligent person and devotee is very rare. And despite that, this son of the Brahmana could not understand his greatness, and he pronounced this curse which was not beneficial to anyone, neither for himself nor for the citizens at large. So therefore Prabhupada says that the king is the protector of the helpless citizens. So everyone is born helpless in this world. Nobody can give protection to anyone. So that is the nature of this world. Just like if you are in the jail, can you give protection to someone in the jail? It's no use unless you take him out of the jail. So the king is the protector of the helpless citizens. So that's why it's said to be Naradeva. Naradeva means he is God in a human form. And also he has to think about their welfare, peace and prosperity. That is the only purpose of the king. That is to protect the helpless citizens and the welfare, peace and prosperity. So what for this welfare, peace and prosperity? So that they can engage in devotional service. Many times people don't take to devotional service, even though it is the best. Why people are not interested in devotion? Because of these reasons. They are always concerned about the welfare. So that's why when you preach to newcomers, we have to first inquire about their welfare, because they are always disturbed about their welfare. And next is they lack peace. Peace means, as we say, ashantasya kutas sukham. That in the nasti buddhir ayuktasya, najayuktasya bhavana. They don't have fixed intelligence. They lack buddhi yoga. Intelligence is there, but buddhi yoga is lacking. They don't know how to use that intelligence. So therefore there is always anxiety, peace and prosperity. So when there is no peace, there is no question of prosperity. Even the very wealthy countries, they have all the facilities, but because of lack of peace, there is no, even the prosperity is there, it is not so beneficial. So this all, the welfare, peace and prosperity dependent on him. The king also knew that everyone welfare depends on him, so he was very, very responsible. But this son of the Shringi, he was not very intelligent. Unfortunately, by the instigation of the fallen age of Kali. So the time has an influence on those who don't take to devotion. Kalam harati vaipumsam. This, for one who doesn't take to devotional service, time is destructive. But for one who takes to devotional service, time is favorable. So this Kali Yuga is unfavorable for those who don't take to devotion. For those who take to devotion, this Kali Yuga is very favorable, because very easily you can attain success. An unfortunate Brahmana's son. So although he was the son of a Brahmana, he is said to be unfortunate. So that is the symptom of Kali Yuga, that even someone may be born in a Brahmana family, but he may not take advantage of that. It is, because Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna says, one is born in a pious Brahmana family or a wealthy mercantile family, so that he can continue the yoga practice. But even though such situations are very favorable, people are still unfortunate. Upadrita, and was employed to condemn the innocent Mahārāja Parīkṣit. So the son of a Brahmana, who is supposed to do good to society and think about the welfare of society, was causing the downfall of the society by condemning the innocent Mahārāja Parīkṣit. Here innocent means one who is always depending on the Lord. Normally people think innocent means he doesn't know anything. But here innocent means he knows only about God and things related to God and nothing else. So that is also like Jadavarta was there, he is very innocent. So he was taken before the goddess Kali for sacrificing by the man-eaters. So but then they thought he is innocent. But the goddess himself came to protect him. So devotee being innocent means he is fully depending on the Lord. And so the king had to prepare himself for death. So as I said, when we are born itself, death is certain. So from the time of birth itself, one should prepare for death. So that was the training imparted from the mother's womb itself. The training should be imparted of how to prepare for, just like when you join the course, some course for some degree. Then from day one you prepare for the exam, not that you last minute you go and write the exam. Supposing you have taken a very high professional course, from day one you have to, or even before the course starts, still some people start the preparation. So like that, when we know for certain that death is going to happen and we have no choice, the only choice left with us is to prepare for that. So this King Parikshit had to prepare himself for death within 7 days. So for the devotee, 7 days or even 7 seconds is enough. For one who is not a devotee, no matter how much time you give him, he is not prepared. Just like some students are there, the exam gets postponed and they start enjoying. Okay, exam got postponed. But it doesn't really help. Again, the next exam comes, then also they won't write well, because no matter how much time you give them, they won't prepare properly, and naturally the result is certain that is going to fail. But in the case of Parikshit, because he had already prepared for death in the womb of his mother, for him these 7 days was a good fortune for him. And Mahārāja Parīkṣit is especially famous as one who is protected by Viṣṇu. As I said, his name was Viṣṇu Rāta. As I said, everyone say, my fate, which means something is written on my head. I cannot change it. But in the case of the devotee, the fate is in the hands of God himself. So therefore, protection are... and when he was unduly cursed by a Brahmana's son, he could have invoked the mercy of the Lord to save him. So that privilege was there. That's why we say devotees don't unduly pray for some material benefits. They know the Lord will provide. Yogakshemam vahamyaham. Only when it is becoming an obstacle for the devotion, at that moment only they may pray for to the Lord. So in the case of Mahārāja Parīkṣit, he could have invoked the mercy. Already the Lord protected him once. Again I can go to him for protection. No, he didn't do that. But he did not want to, because he was a pure devotee. Anyābhilāṣitākshunyam jnana karmāṇi anukulena krishnanuchulam bhaktiruttamam. So pure devotee is not stereotype. Stereotype means this problem, this is the solution. No. Problems are different. The solution also has to be different. So every time a problem comes, he doesn't go for the same solution. Sometimes for everything, some people say, give me money. They think that money can solve all problems, but need not be. It may or may not. So pure devotee, he doesn't go to the Lord repeatedly for the same problem. So what is the symptom of pure devotee? That is Rakshishyati Vishwaso. That is, Krishna will maintain me and Krishna will protect me. So he is not by sentiment. He is logically seen in his life, how he has been maintained throughout his life. He has understood. And he knows Lord is only the one who can protect me. This is fully convinced. And that's why he can become a pure devotee. And a pure devotee never asks the Lord for any undue favor. Here it's mentioned undue favor. Favor we have to ask. Just like if you want some money from the bank, you have to give an application. They will not just like that give the money. You have to present a request. Similarly, you can ask for favors. And that is one of the prayers also we have to do. We have to ask the Lord for some favor. That we should not hesitate. But at the same time, it should not be undue favor. Which means, is it really going to benefit me? Is it really necessary for me to do my devotion to the Lord? So that should be the consideration. Mahārāja Parīkṣit knew that the curse of the Brahmana's son upon him was unjustified. So now the interesting thing is Mahārāja Parīkṣit knew very well that he doesn't deserve this curse. He doesn't need to go through this effect of this curse. So that is another reason for him to appeal to the Lord. Normally if some injustice happens, immediately we appeal for justice. So why he has many considerations here. One is the age of Kali is there, that is designed by the Lord, so that has to come to pass. And secondly, the Brahmana's word has to be respected. That cannot be counteracted. So thirdly, he has to abide by the plan of the Lord, which is to eventually the narration of the Bhagavatam. Parikṣit Maharaj knew that the curse of the Brahmana's son was upon him was unjustified. But at the same time, he has to reconcile. How does he accept this injustice? He is thinking from God's perspective why this is happening. Normally, we try to analyze the situation from our point of view, from the social point of view, from others' point of view. All this analysis we do. But we also have to take into consideration what does God have in this for me. So that was the qualification of Mahārāja Parīkṣit. So for him it was not as everyone else knew. Not only from his point of view which was unjustified, as per the local custom also they knew, the people who were intelligent at that time, they knew very well this was, just like now this crisis going on in Bangladesh, everyone knows it is unjustified. Every sensible person knows. But he did not want to counteract it because he knew also that the age of Kali had begun. So, time is under the control of the Lord. So, if things are happening in this world, to some extent we can try to change it. But if you are not able to change it, we have to accept it as the will of the Lord. So, he understood, Mahārāja Parīkṣit understood that some things will come to pass in Kali Yuga, like the son of Brahmana cursing in an unjust way. So just like when you are playing a game, not necessarily the other person will follow the rules of the game. Just like in the Mahabharata war we see, deliberately the people were violating the rules. But it's all the more difficult. And despite that, the Pandavas had to win the battle. Because they took shelter of Krishna, it was made possible. Despite all the rules being broken and so much injustice, still they could manage to succeed because of their devotion to Krishna. So, and that the first symptom of the age, namely degradation of the highly talented Brahmana community, had also begun. So what is the role of a Brahmana? Brahmajanatiti Brahmana. At least they should know what is the difference between the soul and the body. Only then they can understand about the Supreme Lord, the Paramatma and all these things. He did not want to interfere with the current of the time. Current of the time means things are going in a certain way. Sometimes we need to alter it, sometimes we need not alter it. Just like a person is bowling a ball at very great speed. One option is you defend it or you just deflect it. So like that intelligent person, he is very improvise. He knows how to improvise. Improvise means given any situation, you can work it out in your favor. So he, rather than trying to reverse the course of events, he thought how I can go with the events and alter my fate. But he prepared himself to meet with death. Because Krishna himself says, I am death. So for him, Parikṣit, death means he remembers the Lord. So for him it is favorable. Just like Prahlāda Maharaj also, time and again he was facing death only. His father himself was death personified. Or even Dhruva Maharaja, at the end of his rule, death personified, he could see death personified. In many of our cases, we don't see death personified or his emissaries. But in the case of great devotees, they can see death personified coming in front of them, like Dhruva Maharaja. So Parikṣit had already, just like Vedavyasa saw Maya Devi on one side and also Krishna. Great sales, they can see both Vidya and Avidya. So Vedavyasa is such a great devotee that he could see Maya and side by side Krishna. So death is also there. Like Ajamila also, because of chanting the Lord's name, he could see Yamadutas and Viṣṇudutas also. So, but he prepared himself to meet death very cheerfully. Why cheerfully? Just like a person who is well prepared for the exam, he is very happy to write the exam. I also remember in my college days, school days, when I am prepared well, it's very interesting to write the exam because we know the result will be in our favor. So he was very cheerfully and very properly. Some people are very cheerful, but they take it very whimsically also. So some people, they know they are going to be killed, hanged tomorrow. If they ask them what you want to do one day before you are getting hanged, they say, I want to enjoy with a woman because it's my last day. So that is not the way. Here properly it is said, cheerfully and properly. Because he is very responsible, he is for his own life. And many people are looking towards him for guidance. After death, also they want to look towards him. That is the greatness of while living also he is guiding citizens, and after his death also he continues to guide. Just like our Prabhupada was guiding the devotees during his presence and is guiding now also. So he wanted to act very cheerfully and very properly. Because everyone has to go through this experience. We have to be cheerful. And we should also prepare properly for that. Being fortunate, he got at least 7 days to prepare himself to meet death. So how fortunate we are. We have at least, we can assume that we have some good number of days, or already we have got enough days. So that is our fortune. To preparing for death itself is very fortunate. Being fortunate, he got at least 7 days to prepare himself to meet death. Because already the exam paper is out for us. Already people have written this exam, they have gone through the questions, they know the answers. Nowadays, initiation also, people already know what are the questions and what are the answers. That's how they are. So similarly, many people have gone through this experience, they have recorded what is death, how to pass through the death, what happens after that, already mentioned there. We just have to refer to that. So that is our good fortune. And so, he properly utilized the time. So one of the symptoms of a person in the Bhava stage. How do you know that we are close to God? Many times people ask, how do I know I am progressing in my Krishna consciousness? One of the symptoms is how are you utilizing your time? That is an indication of how you are progressing in Krishna consciousness. So Mahārāja Parīkṣit, so he properly utilized the time in the association of Śukadeva Gosvāmī. So that is the proper utilization of time. Getting the association of devotees. That is what is that? Lavamatra sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hoy. Even if fraction moment you think about the devotee. Other day this Prabhu was giving in the talk. That person was about to die and he could see Prabhupada. So association of Śukadeva Gosvāmī, the great saintly and devotee of the Lord. The saint means wise, intelligent. Sadhu means intelligent. And sadhu savdhan, they say, means beware of a sadhu. Normally people, sadhu means we try to exploit him. We think he is foolish. But sadhu means very intelligent. So that's what is the qualification of Parikṣit. And similar is the qualification of a spiritual master, Śukadeva Gosvāmī, who is also very intelligent and also a devotee of the Lord. So this perfect combination enabled him to overcome death. So, besides this, what is given in the purport, I had thought of some points to mention. So, one is that here we see about when I first came to Krishna consciousness, the first lecture I heard is quantum mechanics and consciousness. It is not through any Bhagavad Gita lecture, Bhagavatam lecture, or Chaitanya Charitamrita lecture. Of course, I was interested in that, but what interested me was this quantum mechanics. So what is that to do with Krishna consciousness? The question was in my mind, because who was presenting it was a great devotee. Why he is talking about quantum mechanics? Because we talk about Krishna consciousness. Because the International Society for Krishna Consciousness means we are always concerned about consciousness of Krishna. But unless we understand matter, because Sankhya Yoga and Buddhi Yoga, the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is explained that Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga are same. So analytical study of this world, it can also lead us to Bhakti. And even Lord Kapiladeva is instructing his mother about Sankhya Yoga. And similarly in the 11th canto, Lord Krishna is instructing Uddhava and Sankhya Yoga, analytical study of this matter. So if you want to understand matter, because the majority of this world is not interested in spirituality. Even if they come for some other reasons. So they are only concerned about matter. because they are in contact with matter all the time, which is the body itself, is the mind, these are all matter. So, consciousness studies can help us to understand matter better. So, that was the main point of his talk, that even if you want to exploit matter, if you want to understand matter, you need to understand consciousness. And that consciousness can be understood only in connection with Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, even demons are conscious. Just like how Hiranyakashipu is able to remain in that body which is already eaten away by all the ants, and he is able to undergo such severe austerities because he is also conscious. He has also perfected his consciousness. But the problem was he is not Krishna conscious. So this consciousness is also can be misused because it's a very subtle. In the Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter, Krishna is talking about phenomenal and noumenal. Phenomenal means it's what we can experience through the interactions of the gross and subtle elements. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. These are the gross and subtle. Then beyond this, there is the spirit soul. So that spirit soul is more powerful than this gross and subtle elements. So when we talk about this Brahmastra, Brahmastra is not made of material elements. Because matter can be counteracted with matter. In the Bhagavad Gita 2nd chapter, Krishna talks about different weapons. So if you have a earth weapon, you can counteract with water, or water weapon can be counteracted with earth. Similarly, fire weapon you can counteract with water, and air weapons you can counteract with fire, and sound weapons you can counteract with air, because sound doesn't travel through vacuum. If you remove air from some container and you try to pass sound through it, no matter how much noise you make, you can't hear it. So this material elements have this property that the one lower can subdue the one higher. So that's why if you want to subdue the mind, we have to engage the senses. Similarly, these are gross elements and subtle elements. But this Brahmastra is not made like that, of these material elements, in the subtle form of Mahat-tattva. And this is related to consciousness. So that's why the spirit soul is so powerful. It can either use this consciousness to serve God and become Krishna conscious, or it can misuse the consciousness to destroy this material world. So Brahmastra is invoked by persons who have that qualification and by chanting mantras. So mantras are sound vibrations. Through sound vibrations we can impact so much changes in matter. Just like even the pandemic time, there was some speculation that this pandemic is due to this usage of mobile phones. And that can't be denied also to some extent. It is scientific only, because ultimately matter is as a wave form. So through this interaction of these different waves, you can alter matter also. There are some magicians, what they do is, they produce certain sound vibrations and they can make you unconscious. Or you may not be able to see if something, you keep something in front of you and you are under the influence of these waves, you won't even be able to see that. So even our perception can be altered by this manipulation of these subtle elements. And as I said, Parikshit already had a spiritual body. So in the womb of his mother also, nothing could happen. And the Brahmana's curse of the biting of the Takshaka. So just like Hanuman Brahmastra was released by Indrajit to bind Hanuman. But Hanuman already had the benediction that Brahmastra cannot do anything to him. So but he acted as if the Brahmastra had overcome him. So like that Parikshit, although it is cursed to die by the biting of the Takshaka, it had no impact on him. He knows very well. Because if the Brahmastra itself could not do anything in the womb, what will that snake Takshaka do to him? So, and moreover, when he departed from this world also, people could see his spiritual body. So there are gross and subtle pleasures and pain also. These demons, they try to impinge, they want to inflict pain on someone, they use gross means. You might have heard so many ways, gross ways of inflicting pain. But more painful is subtle pain. There are subtle ways you can inflict pain. So these people on the higher planets, they know that if you want to enjoy also, you need a subtle body. With the gross body, you cannot enjoy much. So they voluntarily accept the subtle bodies in the higher planets. And even if they want to inflict pain also, they know you can inflict more pain with the subtle body. Just like Yamadutas, they don't come to punish you with the normal way which the policeman or someone inflicts pain on the criminal. They take you with the subtle body and inflict all possible punishment by taking them to different hellish planets. So that another concept we come to know, that the subtle body can experience more pleasure and more pain also than the gross. That's why those days when they use the weapons, they use subtle weapons more than gross weapons, because they knew that any gross weapon, you can easily counteract it. But to counteract a subtle weapon, it's very difficult. Just like when Aswadhama released the Brahmastra, it is a subtle weapon. Only Arjuna knows how to counteract it. And in the case of when he released again this Brahmastra to kill Mahārāja Parīkṣit in the womb, Krishna himself had to intervene because nobody else could protect him. Okay, I think I have covered most of my points. So this conception of space and time is also has to be understood from the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam 3rd canto, the description of time. Because this Brahmastra has to be very precise. Because if you want to release any weapon, it has to cover space and time. So it cannot travel like a usual missile. The missile, normally you are sending a satellite to some planet or some moon or something, you follow some principles of space and time. But that cannot be applied in the case of Brahmastra, because if you are releasing a weapon, obviously there will be some obstacles and it will take a lot of time to overcome all that obstacles. So how can it go so fast and exactly the place where it has to go? Prabhupada explains in some of his purports of the lecture, Brahmastra was so precise, it will only go and kill the target. It won't go this way, that way. Now currently if they release a weapon, bombs, it kills mass destruction. The Brahmastra was so subtle, it goes exactly to the precisely the exact point and in particular time. There's no delay at all. So these are all lessons we can learn how this Krishna consciousness can elevate not only in our devotion, but even in our understanding of this material world. Because unless we understand this material world, we cannot go beyond it. That's why even when the soul is taken to the spiritual world, he is taken through all the material planets. Just like the Gopakumara was there. He was taken through all the planets. Then finally he himself made a choice that Goloka is the highest. So unless you are really convinced about the spiritual world, having analyzed all these material worlds, you won't feel comfortable going there. Otherwise your mind will be oscillating, whether material world or spiritual world. So you should be Jnaninas Tattva Darshana. Means you should be thoroughly convinced, not theoretically, practically, that spiritual world is better than the material world. The pleasure I can get in the spiritual world is much different and much unlimited than what is in the material world. Okay, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak something on this verse. Hare Krishna. Yeah, her question is not Brahmastra material? Yeah, just like we say, what is the difference between the spiritual and material world? It is a perception, consciousness. In the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there is a description of the banyan tree. So, because of our consciousness, we perceive this as a material world. But when you become a stage of prema, then you don't distinguish between the spiritual and material. So the consciousness determines whether matter, what is matter, how is matter functioning. All that if you really have to understand properly, perfectly, then one has to be Krishna conscious, even to understand matter. Yeah? Yes. Yes. So such a devotee can use this matter also in the service of the Lord. That's why he says yukta vairagya. Yukta vairagya means he doesn't reject this world as false. He is always thinking how I can use it. Of course, we cannot experiment in our stage. We always make mistakes. While trying to use matter in the service of the Lord, invariably we commit many mistakes. But if there is an advanced devotee who can know how to, just like Prabhupada, when I was giving a talk, and this mic stand was coming down again and again. So Prabhupada asked one devotee to remove his Brahmin thread and tie this mic. Obviously Brahmin thread is not meant for that purpose, but Prabhupada said, doesn't matter, you give that Brahmin thread and tie this mic so that it doesn't keep falling. So my point was that consciousness decides whether something is matter or something is spirit. So therefore we have to become Krishna conscious so that we at least know how to distinguish matter from spirit. Currently, although we say I am not the body, I am soul, all that theoretically we know, but practically we face a lot of challenge. We are facing so many obstacles to our devotion because we don't practically understand how consciousness is so subtle, because it is subtler than the ego. Ego also somehow you can capture, you can understand this person's ego. But the consciousness, because ultimately consciousness is affecting the matter which we are using, it's affecting our mind, it's affecting our intelligence, affecting our ego. So basically it's affecting our perception of this world also. So we are thinking this world is meant for my enjoyment. But the devotee, because of his pure consciousness, he understands immediately from the day one, like Parikṣit. Day one he understands, or Prahlada, he understood immediately that I am meant to do devotional service. Yes. The material world is there for me to do devotional service, not to enjoy. Just like a child goes to school. Some children go to school to enjoy and waste. But some intelligent person knows I have come to school, I have to learn something. So even the material world, if our consciousness is clear, we will use it to serve devotion from day one. No complaints. Oh, this is material world. If it's been be spiritual world, I will do better service. No, don't look for a perfect environment. Like Mahārāja Parīkṣit, he was put in a situation where he could have altered it. He didn't want to alter the situation. Given that situation, he wanted to know how I can perfect my life. Okay, Mataji? Yes. Yeah, her question is it not difficult to understand matter? Although we are saying matter is also in a Devi Hesha Gunamayi, Krishna himself saying, Gunamayi Maya, Devi. It is his energy. So we cannot ignore it. But at the same time, there is a process for understanding this matter. So those details are already there in the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam gives both knowledges, Vidya and Avidya. Both knowledge is given. So we should not look at it in one side, only certain cantos, certain sections. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Krishna gives that knowledge. If you do devotion properly, ultimately common sense. As a devotee, we should also be aware of common sense. We should apply our common sense. That's why he says we have to use our intelligence. Intelligence means we should also know what is common sense. If you analyze, let's say Prabhupada used to argue with the scientists based on common sense. Forget about scripture. He would not argue with them based on scripture because that is too far for them. Just by common sense he will argue. Someone says that the Krishna consciousness is a religion. Prabhupada used to argue, no, this is a science. Then he used to give the example of the change of bodies. So like that, even if you don't know much about matter, at least if you apply your common sense, then you can at least to some extent know what is matter and what is spirit. But as you advance in devotional service, that comes automatically, this knowledge of matter. Then you will find it in the scripture. The scripture is giving both knowledge, matter. In the Bhagavad 7th chapter itself, Krishna started the chapter by saying, I will give you both phenomenal and noumenal. He's not telling I will only talk about the spirit and about me and about devotional service. He's also explaining about the workings of material nature. But how do we understand it? It's very difficult. Devi Yashaguni Mamamaya Duratya. Very difficult to understand matter. But we have to know matter. So therefore Krishna says, you do surrender unto me. Then I Sarva dharman paritya. One of the dharma is to also understand matter. But we cannot do it so easily. We cannot ignore it also. But it will come naturally if you take to devotional service and refer to the scriptures. Hare Krishna. Yeah, we can explain many things. Yeah. Okay. So the summary of this quantum mechanics is two things are there. One is superposition. Superposition means you go to the ocean, you see a wave, but you know that the wave goes a little high or very low. You understand it's the result of many waves. It's not just one wave appearing like that. So in this perception, the scientists argue that if I see a book in front of me, I am not really seeing the book. Scientifically, if you argue, this is known as failure of scientific realism. We also say, na pratyaksha praman, anuman praman. The scientists have concluded that by pratyaksha praman, you cannot understand this world. They also know. Although we say scientists are all defective senses for material defects, all that. They also know, the advanced scientists know that we cannot perceive the world as it is. So why it is like that? I gave this analogy. When you go to the ocean and see the waves, you see suddenly a big wave, suddenly a wave going inside. But we know it is not a single wave. Many waves have combined to either increase or decrease. So that's what the result. So like we say in the Ramayana, the distance between India and Lanka is 100 yojanas, but you see it is only less than a few kilometers. So how to understand all this? So whatever we perceive in this world is hidden. Some things are hidden, some things are visible. That's the property of material nature. That is the first lesson. Second thing is, every particle in the universe is related to each other. That is known as the entanglement principle, which is now how this Brahmastra was released. Aswadhama is sitting in one place and is able to impact something in the womb of Uttara. Just like you are using a remote key. With the remote key, you are standing here and you are opening the door of the car. How is it possible? Which means there is some connection between what is happening here and there. Even Prabhupada tells in one talk that when you speak some sound, it goes around the earth 7 times or 6 times, he mentions. That's why you are able to capture that in the mobile phone. Because the sound propagates immediately, instantly. But scientists say sound has some speed. But no, a Vedic conception doesn't have, it is instantaneous. So this is, but we are seeing that. When we are the devotee Gajendra is praying to the Lord, immediately the Lord is in Goloka, but he is able to come immediately. How is it? He is able to hear it immediately. So that is the property of nature, that things, no matter how far apart, they are still connected. Hare Krishna. Tantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada.